So I'm going to call this meeting to order at 5:31-ish. And the first thing is adjustments to the agenda. Do we have any adjustments to the agenda?
I don't think so.
Okay, and the second thing is to approve the minutes of February 23rd and March 2nd.
Eric wasn't present for the February 23rd, so is it all right with you, Eileen, if we do them separately?
Yeah, that's a good idea. So could you make a motion for February?
I'll make a motion to approve and execute to approve the minutes of February 23rd. Is that right?
Yeah.
As presented. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll second.
I just have one comment, and this applies to both minutes, and I don't think it's an important detail, but just going forward, Cass, we should make sure we also have a camera person present in the room, and they're not listed as present. We should just have recorded who they are, probably. Other than that, I think they look great. Very concise and excellent minutes.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on the February 23rd minutes? No? So we should, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And you'll abstain? You weren't there, so you're going to abstain. All right, and then
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of March 2nd as presented. Same thing I commented on already.
any discussion, any further discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye. You can say aye on that one too, because you were there. All right. So the next thing is warrants to the treasurer. Can I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve and execute the warrants to the treasurer as presented upon completion of review.
Can you second?
I second that.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the warrants upon completion, to approve the warrants upon completion of review. And now we are going to review them. Karen.
So payroll warrant dated March 11, 2022, in the amount of $21,484.44. So this is just standard.
Anybody have any comments on the payroll? Okay.
Nothing out of the norm on that.
Okay.
Accounts payable dated February 26 through March 11, 2022, in the amount of $1,237,770.51. In this warrant is the third payment for the school district at $1,136,448.64. All the other charges are monthly.
What is Demco?
I'll have to look at
I'm sorry. I always pick the ones you have to find.
there are some ballot clerks in here, so you'll see some names.
Okay.
Demco is the public library. Looks like some art.
Okay.
Stick together rainbow unicorn design and stick together clownfish design kit.
Sounds fun.
Rainbow unicorn. Can't go wrong.
Those unicorns. So Eric, if you have any questions, I always have the invoices in the meeting.
Okay.
And, I mean, if you're here early, you can ask to review them.
All right.
Do you have any questions about the
I
warrant?
don't.
Josh, do you have any questions?
I don't think so, no.
All right, then if there are no other questions, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Eric, this is our packet for signing things. You have a couple things in here that you need to sign the minutes.
Okay.
And then the warrants are also in there, and all three of us sign those.
Okay.
Okay. So moving along, we are on public comment on items not on the agenda. Does anybody have any public comments?
This is Swift. I'm on the agenda later for talking about the mural, but I wanted to briefly share a something that Mike Marwicki brought to our attention of declarations of inclusion, which Karen brought to my attention after the town fair, which are statements of inclusion that towns can adopt. And someone shared their experience of doing it in Dummerston. And I thought that would be great for us to do that, as well as it would be a way to take the work we've been doing of surveying businesses locally around where they stand on equity and actually make something that all of the businesses in Putney could sign on to or adapt as their own. And just as a place where we're taking the networking that we're doing in relation to equity, and excited about next steps for that. So just wanted to share that.
Okay, that sounds great. Are there any other public comments? I don't see anybody. Anybody in the room? No? All right. That brings us to the town manager's report.
Okay, so I'm gonna quickly buzz through this because it's fairly long. Highway Department report, mud season is upon us, except for today. I don't know where all that snow came from, but the grader is ready to go. There are a couple of areas in town right now that the town crew are watching. They are moving material from the pit to the town garage. So you'll see trucks traveling back and forth. The paving that was to be completed for East Putney Falls Road, Priest Drive, and Houghton Brook. Come spring, when we're ready to do that, we may have to put it back out to bid because of the fuel prices. So diesel right now is running about $5 a gallon or more. And somebody texted me to get gas today because it might go up $1 more by tomorrow. So I hope that's not true, but we will be monitoring gas, the fuel prices. Unfortunately, I had reduced the fuel line items.
For this fiscal year, right?
Yep,
Okay.
so that may hurt us and I'll take responsibility for that, but who would have known? Structures grant, Brian is evaluating Westminster Road near the horse farm or River Road past Priest Drive. Westminster Road is heavily traveled and it creates an impact if that road was closed due to a disaster. So structure grants are going to be coming up. They need to be submitted by May 1st, I believe it was. So
Okay.
we'll be working with V-Trans on that.
Structures being bridges or?
Bridges, culverts,
There's some flooding on that road.
yep.
Okay.
Let's see. He's also monitoring culverts at this time as they thaw and refreeze. There's no major issues at all. The American Rescue Plan Act, Eileen and I have been brainstorming and we're gonna come up with a charge and bring it to the board so we can start a committee. So we need to have money committed by 2024 and spent by 2026. So we really need to get a committee together and start thinking about long-term plan and how best to use this money.
And the money has already come down, right? So it's
Half of the money is
half of it
here.
has, okay.
So yeah, we're, 2024, 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028, 2029, 2030, 2031, 2032, 2033, 2034, 2035, 2036, 2037, 2038, 2039, 2040, 2041, 2042, 2043, 2044, 2045, 2046, 2047, 2048, 2049, 2050, 2051, 2052, 2053, 2054, 2055, 2056, 2057, 2058, 2059, 2060, 2061, 2062, 2063, 2064, 2065, 2066, 2067, 2068, 2069, 2070, 2071, 2072, 2073, 2074, 2075, 2076, 2077, 2078, 2079, 2080, 2081, 2082, 2083, 2084, 2085, 2086, 2087, 2088, 2089, 2090, 2091, 2092, 2093, 2094, 2095, 2096, 2097, 2098, 2099, 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007 it's looking like 734,000 plus is what
Something like
we're
that.
gonna end up with. I think we have like don't quote me, 376 maybe
Okay,
in our account right now.
okay.
I don't have that number in front of me, but I will have it next meeting. Adaptiva HR LLC is our human resource consultant. I am fast tracking with Jennifer Jacobs. I have SWIFT involved with the equity and inclusion, but the personnel policy is, we want to see that reviewed and adopted hopefully by April 1st. Employees survey questionnaire completed by March 11th, and that's basically about, you know, processes and, you know, jobs and training and that kind of stuff. And then the questionnaire out to the town employees by March 14th, results by April 1st. Performance evaluation form update, we're gonna commence performance reviews April 1st. Complete employee performance reviews by May 1st, and supervisor performance reviews by June 1st. As you know, the fiscal year starts July 1st, so we need to have all of that done. We will be changing the forms.
Okay.
I'm working with Jennifer on that. We're gonna be scheduling some management trainings, conflict of interest, harassment and discrimination trainings. And some of this will go out to all of the town employees, and we'll have to evaluate if boards and committees should also do
On
trainings.
some of them at least,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Okay. I'm gonna be sending job descriptions and town policies to Jennifer by April 1st. So some of our town policies may tie into our personnel policy. So I need to send her that stuff to see if it's gonna be an addendum or something to the personnel policy.
Okay.
Employee classification, exempt or non-exempt, May 2022, we'll be looking at that. And then salary equity commencing summer of 2022 prior to budget discussions which start in the fall. We kind of had this discussion, you know, the people are taking town employees.
Yeah.
Contractors, state, you know, they're paying more money.
Mhm.
So we have to be competitive if we want to retain the people we have.
Yeah, it's a tough market
It is.
at the moment.
FEMA River Road storm damage, $372,963.46 is the reimbursement request, and it went in today.
Okay.
So, you'll see, I'll hopefully have it back before June 30. Tom and I are meeting with Jessica Roderick. She is the FEMA coordinator. We're meeting with her tomorrow at 10 o'clock here. We're gonna start Cemetery Road and another group of roads. So we have,
For grant, for FEMA money?
yes. It is a long process, and the portal is not easy to get your head around or easy to upload information. So, and pictures and so, but we're dealing with it and we're getting it done. So Brian's been part of this process too.
Okay. Is there a deadline to get the?
No,
Okay,
no.
well, that's good.
But the more money that we can get reimbursed for before June 30,
Mhm.
because we do have that line of credit of $500,000 that we need to pay back,
Right, okay.
so. Let's see, annual financial plan and certification of compliance for town road and bridge standards is due by May 1st. That's kind of what I touched on, for the structures grant and paving as well. So I gotta go through, it's based on our budget. Megan Brunk with V-Trans can help us, but I pretty much got the process down. But if I have any questions, I just ask her. Brian and I will work together on that.
Okay.
And local emergency management plan is due by May 1st. Tom's gonna start that process. I'll take a look at it. And, you know, it'll go in front of the select board when it's ready. I'll try to get it done before, at least 2 weeks before, so we have time to review it.
Okay.
Local hazard mitigation plan was submitted to the state of Vermont on 3/7, so hopefully we won't hear back, you know, that we have to make some revisions. We're hoping it'll get approved the second time around,
Okay.
which will be a good thing because our ERAP is tied to that.
Tied to that, right?
Yeah. And I've generated a list for tax sale proceedings.
Okay.
My hope is that a lot of them will make an arrangement or pay up, and we're looking at $100,000
Okay.
just in tax sale.
Is that higher than usual?
No,
Okay.
no, it's not.
Well, that's probably good.
Right.
And when does tax sale usually happen?
I try to do it before the end of the fiscal year, so we have until August 30th
Okay.
to get any other revenue and, you know, to bill everything into this fiscal year. So if I can do it before the end of August, then that revenue can be tied into this fiscal year, which will help a lot.
Okay.
So, there's a lot going on right now, so if I'm a little squirrely, you're gonna have to forgive me. That's
Always
fine.
forgive you, Karen.
And that's the end of my report.
All right. Is there any public comment on the town manager's report? Doesn't appear so. Nobody in the room? No? All right. So that brings us to select board items. And the first item for discussion is the select board acting as the sewer and water commissioners for the Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust application for sewer and water. And it looks like Peter Paggi is here. Do you have anything you'd like to say?
Nothing in particular. We submitted our application to Karen, including the utility plan and the flow memo from our engineer. As far as I'm aware, and in discussions with Karen, there is adequate capacity for this, and we will be pursuing our state water, wastewater permitting after we get through the local DRB process, through this process, and through a couple funding rounds. So we'll most likely be doing that probably around the beginning of June. But that is it. And happy to answer any questions as well.
So I just want to comment in your packet is the water and sewer applications for connections. The fees have been paid for the applications. In this packet is Stevens and Associates report. So whenever somebody hooks into the system, they have to have an engineer design it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the plan is here too. So their average daily demand will be 5,360 gallons per day. I've had conversations with our water sewer contractor, and he's assured me that the state has allocated 110,000 gallons per day. I'm gonna say this again, because I've said it before, 110,000 gallons per day. Joe monitors and has to report to the state every month, so I've been taking those reports and putting them into a spreadsheet. And our average has been right around, I think it was 37,000 gallons per day,
So we
okay?
have a lot of capacity, it sounds like.
Right,
Okay.
so here's the rub right now, because we use NEMRIC, okay? So I had Kim do a spreadsheet. She went through every single folder and documented, you know, what the town allocated, what the state required, and we added up the numbers, okay? just this week, I looked at an allocation report, and right off the bat, I'm like, oh, there's a red flag. You know, we had 2 properties that a project never went through, they never connected, and they had 16,000, you know, for a number, for an allocation, which throws that report way off. My report was showing a much higher number. I had NEMRIC this week create a report and ask for the metered, what has been used through the meters. That number was 31,000 gallons per day.
Wow, okay.
So I'm confident with 30 to 37,000
Yeah,
gallons per day. And we do have enough capacity.
okay. All right. Do you have any questions, Ed?
Nope, no.
Josh, do you have any?
No, I'm going to recuse myself from discussion, and also I will abstain from voting on this due to I am a partial landowner in that property and don't want perceived or real conflict involved.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, are there any public comments on this piece? I'm not seeing anyone. I don't have any questions or concerns about this. So if there's no further discussion, I believe, well, I don't think we've had a motion on this yet. So do I hear a motion to approve the Wyndham and Windsor Housing Trust application for sewer and water for, should I say the number of gallons? Is that the way we normally do this?
Yep.
For 5,360 gallons per day.
Make a motion, we accept it.
I will second that. So if there's no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right,
I abstain.
right.
Thank you, Peter.
Great, thank you very much, everybody. Have a nice night.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, so the next piece is the presentation of the Community Award. Yay! All right, before I present this to you, I'm going to read this letter that was actually read, I believe, at town meeting, but I'm going to read it again. This is the letter of nomination for Putney Person of the Year to the town manager and Putney Select Board. We respectfully nominate Eleni Maxakuli, did I say that right? Correct. Thank you, owner of the Putney Diner, for the Putney's Person of the Year. Eleni has always been a tremendous support to the people of Putney. She regularly donates both food and resources to many Putney organizations and events, including the Putney Food Shelf, Putney Fire Department, and Putney Central School. Each year, she adopts several families from the PCS community to fulfill their Christmas lists, both personally and by organizing a drive amongst her customers. She spearheads fundraising events, most recently partnering with Mike and Kim Costco of the Putney General Store to run a benefit dinner helping the Winchesters recover from their devastating fire. In short, Eleni's generosity exemplifies the best of Putney's community spirit. What is unseen by most is the cup of coffee and bite to eat she offers Putney's homeless on a regular basis, and the discounts she often gives to those that she knows needs it. Eleni's generosity fills stomachs and hearts. Even during the hardest pandemic times that allowed for no in-person contact, when small businesses such as hers were suffering, she provided delivery service for those in need. As things have opened up, the diner has returned to offering the constant inviting atmosphere she creates for all of Putney. Eleni never seeks thanks or recognition. She just does what she does out of community love. We hope that love can be reciprocated with this affirmation of her importance to us all. Thank you for taking the time to consider our request. And I would like to present this.
Pictures, sorry.
You?
It's been a great honor to be part of this community, and I'm very thankful for this award. I wouldn't be able to do it without this community. So I am very thankful to be here and part of it. Thank you so much.
We thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. You can give that reading too if you want.
Oh, yeah, do you want this? Do you want this? Yeah, take the plastic and the, everything. There we go. All right. Okay, sorry, I lost my place for a second. So the next piece is the elections report, which is you.
9 minutes.
It says 9 minutes on here.
Let's start with, so annual town meeting was held March 1st. We did a lot of absentee ballots and then in-person voting at the fire station. Out of 1,993 registered voters, we had 660 votes cast, which is 34%. The select board ordered the town clerk to mail ballots to all active not challenged voters. We mailed 1,822 ballots. We got 36% of those back. So we were at 666, which is a little disappointing participation from my point of view. But contrast it with the school district election where only 236 people voted. 145 in person, 91 absentee. So the town did better than the school. In terms of expenses, the total expenses for town meeting was just over $4,400. $2,500 of that was to mail ballots to all of the active not challenged voters. So more than 50% of the expenses. The election results are posted on the town's website. Under the town clerk tab, annual town meeting results, you can see how many votes for each of the 16 articles in the elected position races. Meg Mott, not surprisingly, was the top vote getter. There are two things that I need you to act on tonight. The first one is, well, they're both related to Article 4. Article 3 expanded the size of the select board. Article 4 directed the select board to set a special, if Article 3 passed, to set a special election within 60 days of March 1st. 60 days of March 1st is April 30th, which is a Saturday. I think the Tuesday before, April 26th, 2022, should be the date of the election, and that's going to be my recommendation. Then once you establish the date of a special election, all of the deadlines are set by statute. You know, so if we're having an election on April 26th, candidates must file their consents the 6 Mondays before, which is March 21st. And that's statutory. And I think the Article 4 ballot language reflected that. So I'm hoping that we have a motion to set the special election for April 26th. As long as we're having an election, we should bring it up that if there are any articles that the select board wants to add, you would need to do that at your March 23rd meeting, which is in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Right.
You
know,
so
if you wanted to reconsider taxing corporate solar, for example, or some other issue that, or perhaps you wait until you have a full board and we do something in August.
So August is the...
August is the state office primary.
Okay, so we have the opportunity to put articles on any election or just those two?
Doing it on the November general election would be problematic.
Okay.
Because the state will be mailing ballots to all active, not challenged voters for November.
Okay.
They're happy to add we need to re-elect or elect justices of the peace in November.
Oh.
So those people will be on the ballot. And in previous years,
the state has covered the printing costs for that. You know, because the printing cost for ballots was $1,800. You know, so that's printing and programming, and the state picks that up for the August primary and the November one. You know, so that's quite a bit of money, you know, $3,600 that we don't have to spend.
Okay.
Well, in November is kind of late, seeing we're gonna have a March meeting.
Yeah, I was just curious
Yeah.
whether there was,
Yeah,
if it was, all three elections could be
right.
tagged on to, I guess.
Right. So to the extent that the current makeup of the board has any articles that they want to present, probably the best opportunity would be to decide that in the next 2 weeks
Okay.
and do it in April.
Okay.
There's a second bite of the apple in August. It would be difficult to get articles in November just
Okay.
because of the mechanics of it.
All right.
And then the second thing, for town meeting, we mail ballots to all active voters. And, you know, we're happy to do that work, but it was $2,551.14 to do that. And so you would need to decide whether you want us to do that again
For this next one.
for the April.
Right.
And we would really need to decide that tonight, unfortunately, just because we need to order envelopes and ballots and programming and all of those things. So those two items need to be considered.
Okay.
And
Do you have any feedback as to why the turnout might have been so low?
I don't, and I wrestle with this all the time.
Okay.
You know, I want 100% participation at every election, and we really couldn't have made it any easier. You know, we mail ballots to every active voter.
Right. And
Yeah.
last year's participation was a lot higher, I think, right?
No, it was 36. It was 36% overall.
Oh, was it? Okay,
Yeah.
so.
The
it
highest
averaged
percentage
out.
that we've ever had is, I think, 6. In the presidential, it approached 80%. It was
Okay.
like 78, 79%.
So
Primaries are usually between 50. Well, the one primary I've done, presidential primary, was between 50 and 60%. And that was the last election before COVID.
All right.
So
and how many came back? Did you say that?
155 were undeliverable.
Undeliverable.
You know, so and Kim and I have blocked out time tomorrow to challenge those voters, because the town clerk's allowed to challenge those without going before the BCA if we get return mail. So those will not go out. So instead of 1833 or 1822, it'll be 17 something.
Okay.
You know, so we'll mail fewer ballots if you decide that you want to mail to all active, not challenged voters for this election.
In previous years for in-person town meeting, what was the participation like?
I think the highest I've seen was 293.
Okay.
People admitted. And when we used to have in-person meetings, there were 2 checklists. There was going through the poll, and then there was entering the floor. And 293, I think, is the highest I've seen at an in-person town meeting. You know, people checking in to go on the floor and debate the budget or whatever the issues were.
Okay.
And then typically it was higher, people just coming through and voting an Australian ballot for, you know, cemetery commissioner and the select board members.
So we're still gaining something by mailing them out?
Right.
Something, yeah.
Okay.
Is it worth it?
Yeah. I mean, and, you know, in terms of logistics, we have it figured out now. You know, we contracted with Howard Printing in Brattleboro to fold all of our ballots, which saved Kim and I probably a day and a half of folding ballots, you know, and it was $160. You know,
Okay.
money definitely well spent.
Yeah.
You know, and we would do that again. And then the listers pitched in, and Karen pitched in, and Cass pitched in, and we did all of the envelopes in all but maybe 200 were done on a Thursday.
Right.
And then I came in for like 3 hours on Friday and finished the last couple hundred.
So what was that bottom line for cost again?
It was $2,551.14. An alternative that you might consider, and we got estimates from 5 Maples and Howard Printing and one other company, the one on Putney on Black Mountain Road. to send a postcard, kind of like the school did.
Okay,
And that would cost between $800 and $1,100, depending on which contractor we went with, so that every voter would get a postcard. Hey, this election is going on. Here's where you vote in person. Here's how you can vote at the clerk's office. Here's how to get an absentee.
uh-huh.
You know, that would be the postcard. And so that's, you know, less than half the cost.
Mhm.
But if that campaign is successful, we have the postcard cost plus
Right.
the absentee
Mailing
ballot
in.
cost.
Okay, so you should be using
You
that
know, so,
right.
you know, if it works, it ends up costing more than just mailing ballots. And then, you know,
Josh, do you
John, can you offer an opinion as to, I mean, I know do you think it's worth it? I don't know that there's a way to gauge the value of that, but just an impression.
I mean, I don't mind doing it. It's something that's been adopted statewide. It just costs a lot of money and is a lot of work. I mean, I want 100% voter participation in every election. You know, I know I'm not going to get it, but, you know, we'll post on social media. The warnings will be up, the notices will be up. Hopefully it's warm enough that we can put the sandwich board out again. We couldn't
Okay.
do it before because the sandbag we used to hold it down is frozen in place. But, you know, certainly we'll do lots of things to promote the election. You know, the difference between a postcard and mailing ballots, you know, town meeting had 666 votes.
Mhm.
The school had 236. You know, we mailed ballots, the school sent a postcard.
Right,
And so many people came into the fire station saying, why didn't I get a school absentee ballot? Well, it was all explained to you in that postcard you got. But, you know, it comes with 8 other flyers that go right into the, you know, into the wood stove or whatever.
Josh, did you have something else?
Yeah, I have a couple other questions. One, I'm assuming there isn't any state money to reimburse us for any of that. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And then the second question, you recommended April 26th, which is a Tuesday. I'm wondering, is there sort of data that would argue that a Tuesday would be a better voting date than a Saturday?
I don't know. Just traditionally, we vote on Tuesdays, and that's why I picked that day.
It would be at the fire station, Josh.
Yeah, no, I'm just wondering, I mean, you know, there are certainly those that argue that there would be higher participation in things, and I know this is a vote if they occurred on weekends on a Saturday as opposed to a Tuesday, and I just don't know whether that's, I think the data on town meetings happening on weekends as opposed to weekdays is pretty mixed as to whether there's an advantage, and I guess I was just asking why you would recommend that Tuesday as opposed to the following Saturday. It sounds like it's.
I picked a Tuesday because historically we vote on Tuesdays.
Yeah.
You know, presidential, town meeting, August primary.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to doing it on a Saturday.
So,
And now, if you went with April 30th, which is the 60th day, and a Saturday, it would not change any of the deadlines. They would still be the same in terms of, but it gives you, you know, if you have your public information meeting
Which we have to have.
at the select board meeting before, and I apologize, I did not look to see what the April
20th.
20th, that would still be in compliance because it needs to be within 10 days.
Right,
Regardless of whether we had it on the Tuesday or the Saturday?
yes.
Okay.
Yes, we would do it, I think. And we would invite whatever candidates, unless there's articles, you know, if we end up having articles, those would be discussed also.
Okay.
Otherwise, I think it would be just an opportunity for the candidates to introduce themselves and why they think they would be a good select person or a select board member.
All right, so I think I think we first want to decide whether we want to stick with the original date of Tuesday, April 26th, or go to the Saturday, April 30th. I guess I was assuming it would also be on a Tuesday, but I'm not married to either one, so are you?
Eric, you got an opinion on that or not?
I don't know.
You don't.
People coming home from work, maybe on a Tuesday, they wanna vote instead of going out on a Saturday and spending gas money, you know, it's one way to look at it.
You can stop, you know,
I'm fine, Eileen, if you, I'm happy to make a motion that we adopt having that meeting on April 26th as recommended by the town clerk.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right. Is there any further discussion on that piece? Is there any public comments? I don't see anybody. So it's been moved and seconded to have the special election on Tuesday, April 26th, 2022. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And then we need to decide whether we are going to mail all unchallenged voters, or whether we are not going to do that and possibly do a combination.
I just want to comment that, so this cost is not in the budget, but, you know, at this point, it's hard for me to tell where we're gonna land in June. But it has to happen, so either way, we're gonna end up expending the cost. And we might just have to tighten our belts and try to not spend in the last quarter.
There'll be a cost for absentee ballots regardless of whether we
Correct.
send them out. It's
Correct.
just a question of how many you send out, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, certain people are now used to voting absentee and will request, and there's a bunch of different ways you can request absentee ballots, and one of the ways through your My Voter page on the through the Vermont Secretary of
Right.
State is you can ask for all elections within a range.
Okay.
And we have about 30 of those. So we already know that we're gonna mail at least those 30 absentee ballots based on the fact that they requested
Oh,
a
that's it.
range.
Okay.
Then we have another probably 100 or so who have requested for town meeting, the primary, and the general.
Wow.
You know, so those people have not yet requested the special. They may or may not. You know, pretty much and Kim and I were talking about this afternoon, pretty much the same people vote in every election. You know, we have people who show up every time, and then we have people that either don't show up or only show up when it's a presidential or governor or whatever.
I personally would suggest that we might be better off in this. I mean, I think we all agreed last year, and I can't remember, Eileen, whether you were part of this discussion or not, but we all agreed last year that voter turnout was increased significantly as a result of that. That was also in the midst of really being in the depth of the pandemic. So, but I wonder whether we wouldn't be better off spending our money doing something a little more sort of visual campaign like, i.e., you know, more sandwich boards or something along those lines that grabs people's attention. I don't know. You know, it's hard to get people to vote, obviously.
Yeah.
It's a big expense to send those out if we don't get much response, and how we might increase participation without that expense or incurring different expenses that might be more effective. I'm not sure.
One other piece of that is at town meeting last year, we had 40 in-person voters. We had over 145 this year.
Really?
You know, so I think last year, you know, the pandemic was bad and people were avoiding
Didn't want to
things.
vote.
A lot more people came out and voted this at town meeting this year.
Question,
Yes.
Did you consider maybe opening like 7 o'clock in the morning to 7? I know it's a very
I'm happy
long
to do
day.
that. I'm happy to do that.
Because then you
We
catch
certainly-
people going to work
Right.
and then maybe people coming
Yeah, I
after
mean, we
work.
certainly could do that as a way to try to increase participation.
So increase
You
the
know,
polling
Vernon does
hours.
that, Brattleboro does that. Dummerston is still 10 to 7. I want to say Westminster is 10 to 7.
Okay.
But there's no reason, I mean, I'm up anyway. Yeah.
Is there still an early voting window as well?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
So people
And
can still
all
come
of
in here
those-
and request
all-
a
you know,
ballot?
When we
Yeah.
were talking about setting the date, early voting is another thing that's established by statute. We have to have the ballots prepared 30 days before. Early voting must start at least 20 days before.
And people can come here
People
and
can
go.
come here and vote in person if
Right.
they don't feel comfortable going to the polls, or they have a rare Wednesday off and they want to take care of it then. You know,
Right.
we do, the first elections I went through, I tried to publicize, you know, a Sunday afternoon, a Saturday morning, for the presidential. And I had no one come. You know, so I got caught up on paperwork and did other things. And part of it is, it's just really hard to reach the people that you need to reach, you know? You can try to put it on Facebook, you can put the sandwich board out, you put signs up at, you know, the post office, the library, the co-op, the general
Yeah.
store.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've already written a press release to go out tomorrow based on what you decided tonight to the Reformer and the Commons. I'm a little frustrated with the Reformers. They haven't published the last two I've sent out.
Oh.
You know, they did publish the election results, and they wrote an article on the Cannabis articles. But, you know, how to vote and how to, you know, the mechanics of it, they didn't print those. So.
I mean, go ahead, Josh.
I think Swift was maybe trying to say something.
Oh, I'm sorry. Swift, did you have something to say?
I was just gonna say the visual, as a resident, visual stimulation is what gets me the most to pay my taxes and to vote. I was like, oh, right, shoot. Gotta go vote. And I think Jamie had her hand up before me too.
Jamie, did you have something to say?
Hi, yeah, I was just thinking about using the mailing to all voters to address other town goals. And so I was thinking about identifying maybe a one-pager on committees, the names and purpose of the committees, and then how many positions need to be filled on each of the committees. And so thinking about a mailing out to all voters for being, if the expense is there, it isn't just for sending ballots, it's also for expanding other levels of town engagement and some other town goals. Because I think you can get a couple pieces of paper and a mailer. So just thinking about other goals of the town at this point and communications. So it can be 3 birds and 1 stone.
How much are you allowed to put other things in the ballots when you?
Well, we wouldn't be sending ballots. We would be sending a notice of the election. Here's how you get your absentee
Right.
ballot.
Okay.
Here's where
Right.
you can vote in person, both at the clerk's office and on election day. And is there space on that for, you know, these committees have vacancies? Probably.
Okay.
I don't think there's any, and this, I don't believe there's any statutory law that prohibits sending a public information flyer to all registered voters
Okay.
or all
So
active.
you're referring to the tact of sending essentially a postcard as opposed to sending out ballots to people.
Well, we obtained estimates today on what that would cost as part of this discussion, you know?
Right.
You can do nothing.
Right.
You can send ballots, you can send a postcard. You know, the signs and the warnings and the warnings and sample ballots and voter checklists, those are all statutory. So those are gonna happen no matter what, and the cost is frankly marginal, you know? You know, will we put it on the town's Facebook page? Certainly. there'll be signs at the general store, and the post office, and the clerk's office, the library, the co-op. The town has a dedicated bulletin board at the co-op, so it'll be there.
So it sounds to me like we are possibly gravitating towards not sending out ballots, but possibly sending out a postcard or other information. Is that, am I getting the right feeling?
I would say yes from me. I think that, John, if we are deciding tonight that we don't want to send ballots out, what does that, because you said this was a decision we really needed to make tonight. If we're not sending ballots, but we're doing something else, do we have a little more time to play with what we'd actually be doing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the only thing, I would have to order the envelopes tomorrow.
Okay.
Because it's 2,000 envelopes. Well, 2,000 of 3 different types of envelopes that have to be ordered.
Okay.
And, it takes a couple weeks to get them, and they'd have to start mailing at least 20 days before. So
That's if we're mailing
a
ballots.
postcard, we went to 5 Maples, we went to Howard Printing, and the one on Black Mountain, which I'm Momentum maybe, and got estimates from each one of those to do a mailing on our behalf. We would design the postcard, but they would print it, put the postage on,
Right.
And take it to the post office and get those out for us using our mailing list.
Okay.
There was some question about where the school got their mailing list.
Right, there was, yeah.
And they didn't contact any of the town clerks. That was generated some other way. It would have seemed to me, we have a database that we can download as an Excel spreadsheet and could have emailed to them and say, send postcards to these Putney voters. But they chose not to do that. But that's the way we would do it, is we would go through our voter registration system, generate a spreadsheet, ship it over to 5 Maples or whoever does the mailing, and that's how the mailing list would be generated. And we have 3 different estimates. It's between $800 and $1,100 to do that.
Okay. All right. Jamie, you have your hand up still.
Yeah, I just had a follow-up. I'm sorry, there was a lot of background noise when there was the difference between the postcard and the ballot difference. Would you just say the high-level number again, John, between postcard and ballot?
Postcard would cost between $800 and $1,100. What we actually spent in mailing ballots for the March 1 town meeting was $2,551.14.
So it would be about a $1,500 savings to do postcards versus ballots?
Correct.
And if we wanted to put in a flyer that outlined town service and committees, kind of a snazzy little flyer, could that be included?
We're contemplating a postcard. And we got postcards for both 4x6 and then a larger 6x8, I think.
Yeah.
So that's why there's such a big, broad range of pricing. Obviously the 4x6 would be cheaper than the 6x8, I think it is. And certainly we could, I have an interest in having people serve on town committees and becoming more engaged in the town. I think that's important. I think it's good for the town. And I'm not opposed to saying, here's where you can vote in person, here's where you can get an absentee. Hey, by the way, have you considered serving your town on one of these 12 committees that need 17 members or whatever the vacancy rate is now? I mean, it's high.
Yes, yeah. It
We'll
is.
find out tonight. It's in the packet.
It is indeed. So I guess.
Eileen, I have one other question. Can I?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
My last question is it legal to send ballots to only people who have voted in town elections in the last 3 cycles?
That's a tough one. I don't know the answer to that. What the Secretary of State's office has done is, on our voter checklist, we have people that the Board of Civil Authority believes have moved away from Putney. And we have challenged those voters because we believe that they are not eligible to vote in Putney. When we challenge a voter, you get a letter saying, the Board of Civil Authority thinks you've moved out of Putney and are no longer eligible to vote. Please send us back this postcard. Most people don't send back the postcard. Some people do. So if they don't send back the postcard saying, yes, I've moved and I've registered in, New Hampshire or wherever, we have to leave them on the checklist until 2 general elections have passed, and then we can remove them. Now, if a Putney voter moves anywhere in Vermont and registers to vote, I get an electronic notification, and that person automatically goes off my checklist and on to Brattleboro or Newfane or wherever they go. So that's just, within Vermont, it works really well. But, if you have, especially with having 2 institutes, the Putney School and Landmark, there are a lot of 18-year-olds there who have moved out of state. They voted when they were here for an election, and then we've never heard from them again. And so those are tough. With the faculty, I have contacts at Greenwood and Putney School and Landmark, and so I send my contact a list of everybody who's registered to vote at that address, 19 River Road South, for example. And I get a list back, and we challenge those people. But again, you frequently do not get a postcard back. So it's just kind of a little bit frustrating system. Would I like to have a more accurate voter checklist? Yes, I would. But the way state law is set up, I can't.
Okay.
So.
Okay. So I think we're still going towards possibly just sending a postcard or some kind of informational flyer, and we don't have to decide which one that would be tonight. Okay.
And for your next meeting on the 23rd, we could have a couple different drafts for you to consider and say we like this one, and there's still time enough to get that out before April 26th.
Okay. Okay. Is that everybody's feeling?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Are there other motions that we had to make on this?
That's everything I have, and I'm sorry I went over 9 minutes.
That's okay.
Well,
I'll have a shorter lunch break.
I think we averaged less on the other ones, so I think we're still good. All right.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay. So moving on, we have cannabis articles and fair and impartial policing.
John, don't leave yet.
Oh, John, you're.
But did you agree that you're going to do April 20th as a public informational meeting, or?
Did we need to make that? Do we need to make that as a motion? I suppose we could, right?
I can't imagine why we would need to have it as a motion, but we should probably state it. I mean,
Right.
sort of by default, unless we're going to have a special meeting.
Right. So what I'd like to propose is that we do it during a regular select board meeting.
Okay.
So I'll
And
put
that's
that
the
item
April.
on the agenda from the beginning.
All
And
right,
then
yeah.
if we have candidates, they can, speak.
They can talk. Okay.
Yeah.
Eileen,
Yeah.
can I just make a suggestion before John leaves that if there's any questions, because as a result of the vote on the fair and impartial policing, John drafted a letter to the sheriff's office. So I don't know whether he wants to comment on that or anybody has any questions, but before he heads out.
I've been approved by the proponent of the article.
Okay.
The person that actually circulated the petition. But if you have changes that you'd like to make, I'm happy to make those.
So this is in your packet because in the past we've had non-binding articles, and they get voted on, but they don't seem to go anywhere. There's no action taken. So I think moving forward, when we have something like this, I think the board needs to make a decision on how you want to act. So this is John's proposal.
Okay.
And John also sends this to the Secretary of State, John?
I certainly can. I haven't in the past. We had one on everybody should have affordable health care.
Yeah.
And the article suggested that Senator Leahy, Senator Sanders, and Congressman Welsh work hard on that. So after that article passed, I sent the text of the article to each of those elected representatives.
Okay.
And I just did that without coming before the select board. But because we're in a contract with the sheriff's department,
Right.
I
see,
kind
yeah,
of wanted to
okay.
have
Yeah,
your input before I,
all
you know,
right.
and on the climate change one last year, I think there was some recommendation to tell somebody, and I can't remember who
That was more
I can't
about
re-
the town though.
Yeah, I can't remember who that was.
Okay.
But I usually go by the language of the article, and like the affordable healthcare one is most clear because it said Senator Leahy, Senator Sanders, Congressman Welsh should be made aware that this is something of importance to Putney.
Okay.
And that is historically what we've done when we've had a non-binding article that relates to addressing a certain issue to a certain group of people. So I'll make a motion that we approve the letter that Jonathan has drafted to send to Sheriff Anderson.
Okay, a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any other discussion on this letter? Is there any public discussion? I see a hand, one hand, I see Laura Campbell.
Yes. Good evening. I'm listening in, and it may have already been stated, but is there somewhere where that letter that John has created can be read?
There is, and also I can read it right now, if that would be helpful.
Yes, would you?
Yes.
I'd just be interested.
So this is to Sheriff Mark Anderson. Dear Sheriff Anderson, the voters of the town of Putney, by an overwhelming margin, 511 in favor to 130 opposed, approved a resolution regarding fair and impartial policing by Australian ballot at its March 1st, 2022.
22.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm
Town
not reading
meeting.
it out loud.
The text of the resolution is as follows. Shall it be resolved that the voters of the town of Putney urge the sheriff to adopt the separately attached updates to Vermont's fair and impartial policing policy, which would limit the Windham County Sheriff from collaborating with federal immigration authorities and welcome and protect the rights of all people living in and passing through Putney. The updates are attached for your reference. Thank you for your attention to this matter of great importance to the voters of the town of Putney. Very truly yours, Town of Putney, Jonathan Johnson. And then we also have the attachment. Do you want me to read that as well?
No, it's available, Eileen, on the website.
Yeah.
People go to the putneyvermont.org website and go to home. And then on the right-hand side of the homepage, there's notices. And under notices, there are select board meeting documents. And that's where every week, Laura, you can find the full packet of documents that we're referring to.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you, Josh. And thank you, Eileen.
You're welcome. Jane,
Thank you, John.
did you have anything that you wanted to add, Jane?
I was curious as well. I wondered if there was going to be reference to the other two towns in Windham County that overwhelmingly passed it. I didn't hear them included and was going to recommend they be included, but then thought differently.
Okay, thank you.
I don't want to speak for other towns.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Okay, so is there any other discussion, public discussion?
There's going to be one other change to that. The sheriff has a PO box,
Oh,
so
okay.
it's going to be his PO box rather than 11
Jail Street.
11 Jail Street.
Okay. Okay, is there?
Sounds like a monopoly name.
So, Josh, do you have anything further that you want
No.
to say? Eric, do you have anything? Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to approve the letter for the fair and impartial policing. What is
It's Article 16.
Thank you, Article 16, with the exception of changing the date to 2022 and adding the PO box.
Correct.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
So as far as the cannabis articles go, John and I will be doing some more research because that may impact zoning on a
Yeah.
local level. We're gonna have to have that discussion with the planning commission because they're in charge of making amendments to the zoning regulations. So we don't know what that looks like yet.
Okay.
Jonathan did pull some information off the Secretary of State's website.
I believe it was VLCT.
All right.
VLCT put together a 4 or 5 page memorandum advice for municipal officials regarding cannabis. There's also the option, and maybe this is something to be put on the April 26th warning, should we establish a local cannabis control board? And it would
Right.
kind of be like the way we do liquor.
Yeah.
I was wondering whether that
because
was
I'm gonna
just
be coming,
us or.
we're in the liquor license renewal season.
Yeah.
And the way that that procedure works is first, the select board, as sitting as the local liquor control board, needs to approve those licenses, and then they go to the state for final approval.
And
I don't know that, I'm still trying to get my head around how much local control there is over cannabis, and I think it's less than liquor.
Okay.
But that's a discussion that we need to have regarding the cannabis articles.
Right.
Okay, so there's no expectation that it would become the select board's responsibility like the liquor commission? Or we're not sure
I
yet?
think that's still in flux, because there's still, one of the things that's bothered towns on cannabis is that the local, on alcohol licenses, for beer and wine, the town and the state split the fee. It's $1.15 to each, or whatever the amount is for this year. I don't believe that that's the same for cannabis. And then, I try to follow this to the extent that I can as time allows, but the top, as I understand it, the top tier license for manufacturing cannabis is going to approach $500,000 a year. And boy, wouldn't it be nice to have some of that money here in Putney. And one of the members of the Cannabis Control Board, and his name is escaping me, is from Brattleboro. And he's written and lobbied for more local money. So I'm still kind of hoping that comes to pass.
Okay.
'Cause if we're gonna allow, when we allow liquor, we at least get some money out of it.
Right.
And I think the same should be true for cannabis.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of hoping that that's gonna happen, and that,
Right.
Because my understanding is that they won't issue any licenses until the fall.
That was my understanding as well,
Right,
yeah.
so and the legislature's still in session, there could be changes.
So, yeah.
I think also, as it stands with liquor, we basically, we approve it, as you know, Eileen, at our level, and then that gets forwarded to the state for their approval. My understanding is that we will not be able to make a recommendation for or against with cannabis. So I think our role, we may then have to, approve the state's decision or something, but I have the same sense that Jonathan does, is I don't think we're going to have much, if any, control over it at all. But I might be wrong.
Well, there's definitely a zoning piece, and they would have to abide by whatever we decided on that.
Right, there's definitely the zoning piece.
Yeah.
But what I'm interested in is the revenue sharing. You can't tax it unless you tax everything.
Right.
And I kind of have a problem with that. I don't want to pay an extra tax at the general store, or the co-op, or for anything else that gas at Rods or whatever. So that's a tough piece. Brattleboro has that already.
Yes,
So they have the local option.
Yeah.
So they're going to get 1% or whatever that tax is.
Yeah, that's 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So more to stay tuned. There's going to be more discussion on that.
Okay,
Yeah.
sounds fun. All right, is there any other discussion on cannabis? I don't see anyone from the public. Josh and Eric, you're good?
All right.
Good.
Okay.
All right, Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Okay, next is the Equity and Inclusion Black Lives Matter mural. Is it Swift?
Yeah, hi. So I, as the chair of the Equity Committee, met with the NAACP. I guess I'll catch people up. So last we talked about this, I had turned to you of what are we thinking next for the mural? And you had said, let's talk to the NAACP and talk to the school about next steps with it. I first turned to the NAACP and went to one of their meetings, and we talked about what it might look like, what we would do, and what really came to light was the piece of, and then I'd had follow-up conversations with some of the executive members, and realizing that what might make most sense for the future is to create a vertical permanent mural somewhere in town. And that is what we've talked about with them and in our meetings, and it's seeming like that might be the next step to start getting a sense of what values we're wanting to be put out in that mural, as well as looking for some artists locally, hoping for a person of color local, and to start thinking about where and starting this planning process and what that would look like. One of the big key things that I want to discuss with the NAACP and with the town, and mostly with residents and what we want this mural to represent, is the curiosity that this mural was originally a Black Lives Matter mural. It was specifically for that, obviously clear one message. And the curiosity of how, if and do we want to invite a broader representation of diversity and equity into this mural. It's the difference between a Black Lives Matter sign and a we believe in LGBTQ rights, we believe Black Lives Matter, we believe, like having a mural that represents is more all encompassing, or having a mural that is really strictly a Black Lives Matter mural. I put that question really clearly to the NAACP and to Stefan and to Mark, who also was on the NAACP and on the equity, sorry, Mark Thurman, who was on the equity committee and on the NAACP. And what their response was really, let's see what the community wants. And what's going to be supported and what is going to be a representation of what this community wants to create. So that's kind of where we stand. And then depending on where we talk about today, we would go into some more logistics and next steps. So I guess I'm curious about your responses.
Can I comment?
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea broadly. As to whether it should be a broader message or not, I think I agree that should be up to the community to think about and have input on. One thing I would just be a little careful about, Swift, before we get too far into this, because I know Bellows Falls had a big conflict with having signage, essentially, is the billboard law. So if we're thinking about a permanent thing, what determines billboard versus art versus, and I'm just bringing that up so that we don't get, several steps down the road and have somebody suddenly say, you can't do that. So
right. And I would hate for someone to use that. I would hate for someone to use that as an excuse.
Yeah, no, well. I totally agree. But, if I just think we should be informed about it first. Yep. And that may, in some ways, it may be that you can have a painting or a piece of art as long as it doesn't have language on it. I don't know. I just would hate, again, to see us get to a certain point and then not be able to do it because it broke Vermont state laws. So doing a little homework on that, I would just recommend doing a little homework on that and then how to discuss it with the community. I don't know, but you said local artists, and I think that would be great. Also, we have artistic school communities in town as well. Whether schools could and would want to participate would be a question, I think, also.
That was another idea of the curiosity of aiming it towards youth too, and really having it being youth led and youth art possibly. Yeah. I guess Anne, I'm sorry, go ahead. I wanted to hear your responses.
So as far as community artists are concerned and maybe getting the community where Lyle works, he has a public cidery, and they actually did a mural on their cidery where they had an artist come and do the outline, but then they invited local school groups to actually paint the mural. So it was a real community effort there. So maybe something along that line.
Oh, I love that. That's, yeah, I mean, that's a fun idea. So we, of getting more quote unquote, like high quality, like art. But I also would love the idea of even just having some 5-year-old art that's really expressing children loving all people. Yeah.
Karen, did you have?
Yes, so I just wanted to comment, Swift, Keith Marks for Next Stage. He reaches out to me frequently, and there is grant funding for murals.
Awesome.
So I can send you his contact, but he's a great resource, and I think we should tap into that a little bit. And I also too, at the pool, would like to see a mural up there. You know, we take the old ones down, and then, you know, it could be children, you know, it could be an outline like Eileen explained too, and the kids paint it. The other spot, which we would have to approach Soundview, is this bare wall that everybody looks at when they come down Kimball Hill. So that might be another option. And if there's grant funding, you know, it may cover the expenses.
For some reason, I'm not knowing which wall you're talking about. As you're coming down on Soundview.
So when you're looking straight at Soundview.
Sandhill, sorry. Soundview, right.
Soundview paper, they have that wall right there.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Oh, right.
Yes.
That's great. I was trying to think of like vertical walls, and I was like, we can't put it on the side of the town hall. It's like it's whatever it's called. But that's a great idea.
You know, the other thing too is the town does have a sign ordinance, so we have to be careful with banners and signs going on telephone poles and stuff like that.
But not necessarily paint.
Right.
We have
Right.
anything against paint. Eric, do you have any
No.
comments? Are there more public comments at all?
If there's no other comments.
Yeah, go
maybe
ahead.
no?
Go ahead, Swift.
The other piece that we talked about with the NAACP was removing the mural as it currently stands, in the way of that it's illegible and almost disrespectful in the way that it stands. If we had wanted to repaint this, it would have been great if we had done it as soon as we stopped plowing last year, and we could have had like a second year of having it looking great. We didn't do that. For whatever reason, that really slipped through the cracks. And just acknowledging the tardiness of this conversation. But Karen, and I guess, is there money or a budget or something to get that paint removed, or should we do another fundraising effort in trying to get power washers out there and remove it, or just hiring someone to remove it?
We would need to know what the expense is.
When we had this discussion related to when it was first painted, Swift, the idea was that probably the best approach to it would be to paint over the portions that are still visible with a color that basically matches the road. So I think that would probably be the simplest. I don't think pressure washers would take it off. I'm guessing maybe sandblasting it would remove it. We could inquire with Brian about that, but I think that was the discussion we had a few years ago.
It might be
a gray paint.
And it would be cheaper to do that than to try and remove it.
And it could be done by volunteers, etc.
Right. Okay, that's a good idea.
Physically removing it is pretty challenging, but.
Yeah. That's a good idea. I didn't know that. Thank you for remembering that. Okay, I'll bring that up at our meeting on Friday. And in the past, we've just done our own fundraising to do that. Is there any budget to get, I guess it's really just to buy paint and a few supplies. I think it was about $1,000 to put it on. I don't think it would be that much. I don't know if there's any budget to if we could get a number to you, Karen, or is it?
Yeah, if you can give me a number, Swift, because right now, so the third quarter will be at the end of March.
Yep.
Karen, before you elaborate further, and I don't want to interfere, and I'm comfortable with us doing that but I'm pretty sure it was clear in the original resolution that that follow-up, the cost of follow-up. My only concern is if there would be any backlash from taxpayers
Right.
not wanting to support this. And I know it was part of the conversation we had last time. So I think we should look at the resolution and see how because I'm pretty sure we addressed some of this. So
Okay.
That, but I'm not committing any money
Yeah.
at this time, or maybe not at all. So let me.
I don't think it would be a lot of paint, and I think we could probably find some money for that pretty easily other than from tax money. Because
Right.
I know that was the clear sentiment expressed last time around. There was a big concern on a bunch of people's part that any tax money going to this was not something we should be doing. So
It was fundraising money.
Yeah.
last time,
Yeah.
I know, no, and I
Yeah.
think I'm pretty sure that in the resolution that was part of sort of the discussion was that it further maintenance would be not on the tax rolls.
Okay, yeah, that's.
If you would double check, Karen, I would appreciate that.
Sure, I'll send you something this week. I'll look tomorrow.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And your next meeting is this Friday?
Yeah, our next meeting is this Friday. And we are always looking for new members. Hopefully that won't always be the case, but we are looking like we're going to continue as a committee of 3 now, and really could use some additional support in all the goals that Putney has for equity and diversity. We've got a lot of amazing stuff coming, working on a survey of town residents to get a sense of where people feel the needs are. We're building this equity network of businesses in Putney, working on the new mural, and we're also reviewing the hiring, personnel policy right now. And there's a lot of great ways, and we definitely need support. So come on down. Fridays at 12:15, first Friday of every month at 12:15, there are meetings.
All right, perfect. Laura.
Laura had her hand up.
I just want you to mention that it's at 12:15 on Friday.
Yeah.
Yes.
And also mention the location.
Thank you. It is on Zoom only right now. I don't think that's changed back to having to have in person, but when right now this one is on, we'll see what happens next month, but this month is on this Friday. It's 12:15 on Zoom. You can find the agenda under committees, and we will go back to the first Friday of every month next month. So our next meeting is on April 1st at 12:15 to 1:45. See you there.
All right. Is there any other public comment on the mural or on equity and inclusion? All right, I don't see anyone. So moving on, we're adopting the policies and procedures for the town. So we have the rules of procedure and the conflict of interest and ethical conduct policy.
These are procedures and policies that every year, because of a new board, you'll have to adopt. I suspect when the other 2 members come on board, we'll be doing this process again.
Okay.
These documents are based off of the LCP templates, and they're adapted to Putney. So rules of procedure basically tells you when you're having your meetings, what day, and have you read this, Josh?
Yes.
Okay. Eric, have you been able to get through it?
I went through it a little bit.
Okay. Also, boards and committees will be recommended to sign these as well,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, it does say Putney Select Board. I'm wondering if we'd want to maybe take that off because it does, the conflict of interest specifically applies to all of our committees and commissions, not just us.
Well, each one.
It does state that in the document, Eileen, as you probably know.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the title now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we would be the group adopting it,
Yeah.
obviously, so.
But if we're having
Yeah.
if we're having other committees members sign it, then maybe we want to just broaden it. It's just a
Well,
thought.
what I would do is like rules and procedures for development review board.
Mhm.
And, you know,
Okay.
the only, in planning commission and conservation commission, the advisory boards should fall under the purview of the select board, which would fall under this conflict of interest.
Okay.
So maybe it should be, as far as the title is concerned, maybe it should be conflict of interest and ethical conduct policy for Putney Select Board, boards and committees.
Yeah.
And then it could just be, I mean, the boards probably because they're both statutory and actually they have to make decisions, et cetera. They should probably have to adopt this, but yes, as far as a one policy fits all, that would also probably involve changing some of that. There are a few places in the document that it does refer to the select board, but it also has broader stuff too. So I think that would make sense to have a one policy fits all. Karen, does that make sense to you or not?
For this particular one, you could probably do that.
For the conflict of interest.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it does cover like your quasi judicial proceedings, which is your development review board.
Exactly,
Yeah.
You
yeah.
know, so,
And it covers appointed and elected officers and
Right.
recusal of just appointed officers as well. So
Yeah.
that would cover them as well.
so conflict of interest and ethical conduct policy for Putney Select Board. And
Or even for all Putney boards and committees or something
Yes,
along those
right.
lines.
For all Putney boards and committees.
Yeah.
All right,
Yep.
so I'll just change the title.
Okay.
And then anywhere it states select board in general.
Yeah.
change that.
And that may actually be okay, because mostly what that's referring to, I think, is when the select board has to take actions. And
Correct.
that,
Correct.
because that's related to appointed positions, that would be, I mean,
It's for both.
yeah, I guess the
Right.
one other category you might want to add in the title is for other elected positions.
And other,
Yeah, I guess that could come up.
all right,
I mean, they other elected officials have to swear the oath anyway,
Yeah.
but
Yes.
we should probably, honestly, from my perspective, this is an important legal document to have, but it's almost as or more importantly, just an important reminder for people of sort of the rules of conduct that they are performing under, so.
Okay. Do we want to, that we've just been talking about the conflict of interest policy, do we want to get into, do we want to, we're voting on these, right?
yes.
Yeah, why don't we, so I'll make a motion that we approve the conflict of interest and ethical conduct policy with the amendments to the title that we just discussed.
Okay. 2 seconds?
Second.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to adopt the conflict of interest and ethical conduct policy for Putney boards and committees.
For all
For all.
Putney boards and committees and other elected positions.
All right, as you stated. Is there further discussion on this one? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so then we've got the rules of procedure for the Putney Select Board. This was adopted as well from the LCT, right?
Yes.
And it is, it's not specific to the Select Board.
Well, it is because the meetings are
Well,
listed.
right, the meetings in here, right?
And I think that,
So, yeah, it seems to me that for this, we should probably have one for each, certainly for each of our boards.
yes.
And then, I mean, I think we have policies on, I think we have policy on meeting conduct for other stuff, don't we, Karen? But we should probably,
Go ahead, Josh, I'm sorry.
again, just for the purpose of sort of serving as a reminder for people, we might want to at least recommend, if not request, that committees and boards that are functioning
Adopt these procedures.
I agree with you because I think the chair and the clerk should have them on hand at each meeting as a reminder. I think it would be helpful. One other,
So I'll make a motion that we adopt the rules of procedure for the Putney Select Board document as presented.
Second.
Further discussion?
yes, I have one comment. So on page 2, under E, meetings, item number 2. So special meetings shall be publicly announced at least 24 hours in advance by giving notice to all members of the body unless previously waived. To an editor, publisher, or news director, or radio station serving the area. We don't typically do that when there's a special meeting. So I wondered if you want to take that out or like waive that.
Sorry, can you point out where that was again?
Page 2,
Yeah,
under E for meetings,
yeah,
2.
okay, special meeting.
The second sentence right after waived.
Yeah.
We don't do that typically, Josh.
So can I make a suggestion for language on that, that special meetings shall be publicly, or special meetings shall be noticed as required by statute? Does that sound fair?
Sure. Or
Because that is statutory anyway, how we notice our meetings.
right, in 3 different places and yeah, 24 hours in advance, yes. All right,
Okay.
so I will take that out.
Eileen, you may be seeing this, but I think Robin has a question.
Oh, I did not. Robin?
No, not a question, just a comment. And it may be superfluous at this point, given the discussion that you've already had, but I would like to see this made as explicit as possible for the, particularly the Planning Commission, DRB, and you mentioned the Concom. Just at our meeting last night, the Planning Commission meeting, there was a concern that there had been a conflict of interest among not members of the Planning Commission, but elsewhere. And I think the Planning Commission should be included in this as explicitly as possible, up to and including signing a document stating that we have read and acknowledge the rules of conduct and ethical responsibilities.
You're talking about the conflict of interest policy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been talking about making sure that at least the chair and the vice chair have all of those documents in front of them. And I think possibly having committee members sign them, right? Yes, at least sign that one. Yeah, I agree.
Robin, can I address that specifically, Eileen? Because I believe, Robin, that perhaps you're referring to a potential conflict of interest I had. Is that correct?
There was a concern among some members of the community, yes, and it was attempted. An attempt was made to explain, exactly what had transpired, why we understood that there was an appearance of a conflict of interest, and that we felt that you and others had acted responsibly. But it does raise the question, not just for the select board, but for other people who are attempting to work for the town. So just the more explicit, the better, including, as I say, a signature of all committee members, at least for the PC, the DRB. And
yeah, I definitely agree, and I just want to comment. I have been very cautious, and I don't need to defend myself in this context, but there are those who are asserting that I have had a conflict of interest related to the Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust. I have said numerous times in open meeting that I am a partial owner of that land. I have all but recused myself from conversation. I have occasionally added historical context when that's been necessary, but I have recused myself from votes. And I know there was a reference to my signature being on a document that would possibly represent a conflict of interest. I'm not sure what that document is, but what I can say for sure is I'm aware of at least one vote, and I believe more than one, in which I recused myself from the conversation, abstained from the vote, but then because my role was the chair of the board at the time, I signed the document because the document required the signature of the chair of the board. And I would assert, and if this is not the case, then I would be open to legal counsel about it from appropriate counsel. But I would assert that if a board makes a decision in the presence of the chair of the board, but who recuses themselves, but the document requires the chair's signature, that would not constitute a conflict of interest. Again, I might be wrong about that, but if the chair or the person who's signing the document is following the will of the board, but abstaining from a vote, to me, that does not signify conflict of interest. So I have to say, and I'm happy to have this conversation with anybody who wants to have it, I think this is a little bit of a smoke and mirrors thing. So I just, that's my feeling about it. But I don't know what document was being referred to. I haven't seen it. So if I'm off base and I did do anything that represented an actual conflict or perceived conflict, that was not my intent, and I would go out of my way to correct that if it were the case. So anybody who has questions about that, feel free to reach out to me.
If I can respond, that is the instance in which the subject was raised, and I and others attempted to explain what we felt had happened in the light of that. But my concern is more that because, and I have no concerns on the subject, speaking strictly for myself, but as a member of the Planning Commission, as we go forward with the town plan, which in turn drives zoning regulations, which in turn drives the decisions of the DRB. My concern at this meeting, again, is not with anything that's happened in the past, just that it's made as explicit as possible what the guidelines are that board members, commission members are expected to follow. And so that's something that can be pointed at, used as a guideline, both by the board members and pointed to if a concern arises in the future for us. I'm not worried about the past. I just, this is a policy that I think, personal opinion, has been followed. but at the select board, but I would like to see it made as explicit as possible at other levels of town government. So that's all.
Okay,
I think that's a great recommendation. I would fully agree. And also just remind people that the select board, in fact, has signed this document in the past, and that I think Robin's right. It should be more broadly distributed amongst committee members, et cetera.
Yeah, and I just want to make the point that I was actually in the meeting last night, and did make the point that you made, Josh, that you did recuse yourself from those votes. I was there, and that essentially you were following. If you had signed something, you were following the will of the board, and if you weren't supposed to sign it, then I felt that it was an oversight of the entire board, not of the chair. So. And then I also want to say that my understanding is that whether this has been disseminated to the other committees or not, this is in fact the law. So it does need to be explicitly noted to the committee members so they do not run afoul of this rule, but this is in place whether you sign it or not. I just want to make that explicitly clear.
And can I elaborate on one more thing, Eileen? And that is that, an important thing in small town politics is perceived conflict as well. And I would encourage people, even if it's not as clearly stated as it could be in this document, if there's a perceived conflict or you believe there's a perceived conflict, it should be brought to light. And so, because conflict of interest is real, or in the eyes of the law, it's real or perceived, depending on the outcome of it. So that's something for people to remember.
Excuse me, is there any other comments, public comments on this policy? Don't see anyone here. Eric, do you have anything to add? Josh?
All set.
Okay, so we did make some changes to this. So do you have, I didn't write it down.
It's okay. So under meetings, on page 2, item 2.
Okay. Yeah.
So the second sentence, you're gonna strike unless previously waived.
All right.
And it's gonna be as mandated by state statute.
Okay.
And then you're gonna take out to an editor, that whole sentence.
The whole sentence.
Yeah.
Okay. Josh, do you want to make an amendment to your motion?
I accept it as stated that Karen has a friendly amendment.
Okay. You want to second that?
Second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the rules of procedure for the Putney Select Board with the changes noted. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. We've done both of those. Oh, there is a chart of incompatible offices here.
This is just for
It's informational.
information.
This only applied to me really last year because I was a lister and I was running for select board.
Correct.
So I don't think we have anybody who's in that predicament this year, but it is online if anybody wants to see the list of incompatible offices. Okay, we have select board resignation from listers. Do we have anybody from the lister's office?
No.
Okay.
But in your packet, you will find one resignation, one request for an appointment, and then a recommendation from Jordy Heller and Doug Harlow.
Okay.
You might want to just read
them?
Yeah, they're short.
Okay,
but-
so we have a resignation from Susan Hesse. Dear Select Board, I'm writing to let you know that I'm stepping down from the Putney Board of Listers effective Wednesday, March 9th, 2022. I appreciate having had the opportunity to work with Jordy Heller and Doug Harlow, who are both very welcoming and wonderful teachers. They look forward to working with Kurt Lynch, who has expressed interest in joining the board after a recent interview. In addition, my time in the Lister's office taught me a lot about town history, resulting in many resulted in many interesting conversations with town residents and pleasant rides on back roads. I am so grateful to live here, and I can relate. It's the best part of the job. Okay, so thank you, Susan, for your time. And then we have a letter of interest from Kurt Lynch to the Putney Select Board. I am writing to express my interest in being appointed to the vacancy on the Board of Listers. I have submitted a letter of interest and resume and have had the opportunity to meet with the current group of listers. I have a general understanding of the duties and responsibilities of the position, and I would be happy to be of service in this role. Thank you for your consideration. And then we have a letter of recommendation to the Putney Select Board. As the Board of Listers looks to the future and the ability to keep a fully staffed board, we envision moving from 3 equal board members to a head lister and 2 assistant listers. Susan Hesse has decided to step down from the lister board to make way for Kurt Lynch. Kurt has expressed interest in joining the board and training to become the head lister. Although we will sorely miss Susan, we support Kurt's ambition to become the head lister and request that the Select Board consider appointing Kurt to the lister board.
So you don't actually have to accept Susan's resignation is a resignation. You don't need a motion for that.
Okay.
But you will need a motion based on
To appoint.
to the appointment, yes.
So do I?
So I'll make a motion to approve, based on the recommendation of the current lister board, to make to approve Kurt Lynch as a new lister.
Second that.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to appoint Kurt Lynch to the vacant lister position. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, Kurt, welcome aboard. Okay, so the next one is the Select Board appointments for boards and committees.
All right, so in front of you, these are all the votes that showed interest to be reappointed to these committees. Josh, you don't have the short list that I created this afternoon. So it might be hard for you to follow along, but Affordable Housing Committee has a full committee. Elizabeth Chase has been put on the list because Josh Laughlin has stepped down.
Okay.
Development Review Board is a 5-member committee as of the vote a couple weeks ago. Jim Schweitzer and Philip Bannister are up for 3-year terms.
Okay.
Affordable housing, by the way, everyone, is a 1-year term, as it's an advisory committee. Energy Advisory Committee, we have Alan Blood, Morgan Casella, Robin Ekstrom, and Val Chu for 1-year terms. And we have 3 vacancies on that committee that we need people to step up. Equity and Inclusion is a maximum of 9 members. Currently, they have 3. Swift Erity, Mark Thurman, and Teresa Severino. These are 1-year terms. If we can get 2 people to step up to make this a 5-person board, it would be more effective.
Yes, please.
The Planning Commission is a 5 to 7 member commission based on state statute. Philip Bannister and Vanessa Vadim are both up for 3-year terms. They've agreed to serve another 3 years. Fence viewers, we should have 3 members. We have Josh Laughlin, John Johnson. I have a phone call into the 3rd person to see if they want to continue, and I will get back to the board on that. Wear of Coal is Wayne Wagenbach. We don't need to ask him every year, he just wants to do it. So thank you, Wayne. White Whitney Oversight Committee, they are run by their own board. They have one vacancy, but because the select board does oversee this committee, and I don't know if it's appropriate, but I'm gonna ask this board to vote on, you know, letting them serve another year.
Okay.
So they have their own meetings. It's kind of like the library.
All right.
So, but we do, the board is in charge of overseeing. So when they have a financial request from the community, they bring it to us, we cut the check,
Okay.
because it's that special fund
Yeah.
that we actually oversee.
All right.
But,
So, I mean, the Board of Trustees for the library are actually elected,
correct.
so it's even more of a gray area, I guess.
It is great. It's, yeah, very great.
Okay.
Connecticut River Joint Commission Subcommittee, 2 vacancies. They're 1-year terms. District 13 Ambulance Committee Representative Tom Goddard, 1-year term. Rescue Inc. Board Representative is a vacant position. Norm Bartlett did step down.
That's right, yeah.
We do need somebody in this vacancy because this is an important position. Basically, you go to the meetings, you bring the information back to the select board. Their contract did not go up for 2023, but I do expect it's going to start climbing, especially with gas and the amount of calls that our first responders are going to. So we should try to fill this one if possible. Wyndham Regional Commission, Stephen Dotson, I have an email into him. I'm not sure how active he is, but there is 1 vacancy on that, in that area too. Wyndham Solid Waste Management, looking for an alternate person. Dan Toomey has been doing it for quite a while and he's been doing an excellent job. So my request from the board tonight is to have a slate, reappoint all these people.
Okay.
And
So I'll make a motion to approve the slate as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the slate of members as presented. Is there any discussion? Don't see anybody from the public. Does the select board have anything to say?
did you get all that, Jamie? Jamie? 11 positions are vacant.
Yeah, I'll make my plug again. These are very important. These are all committees that we need for the town to function. Even just showing up at their meetings, they're all open meetings. Just showing up and contributing that way. If you don't feel that you have the time to spend every month to actually commit to. Public input on all of these committees would be great. So that's my plug. Is there any other further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Select board appointment for town health officer.
In your packet is a recommendation form. I reached out to Tom Goddard, who has done this previously. He did agree to step up for another 3 years.
Okay.
So
I will make a motion that we approve Tom Goddard as the town health officer for a term of 2 years.
Second that.
Is there any further discussion? So it's been moved and seconded to appoint Tom Goddard as the town health officer. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, and the last thing is the Vermont Council on Rural Development Opportunity. Do you want to explain that, Karen?
Sure. So I was approached by Keith Marks, and he actually gave my contact information to the Vermont Council on Rural Development. So this program is free. They'll work with the town of Putney, the community, not just town government, but it's community engagement. And what they do is they brainstorm, they do surveys, get it out to the community. They get people involved to come up with a long-term plan. And they've done this, they haven't done it in the southern part of Vermont for a while, but Rockingham has done this program. And it'll benefit us long-term if we have a plan. So basically, it creates community goodwill and it leverages funds, you know, for planning resources. And it's a mechanism to talk about important issues and begin long-term work for the future. And it also can make Putney a healthier community. So I ran this by the Planning Commission last night. I was at their meeting and they made a motion to move forward and bring this to the select board because they think it's a positive and it could be a beneficial program for Putney.
Okay. Do we have to take any action on this?
I think I was asked to bring it to the select board by the Vermont Council.
Yeah.
So, and when I said it was free, it actually is not quite free because the community has to put on like a dinner.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. So I think we have some really good places to do that. You know, we can get Landmark College involved. You know, equity and inclusion can be part of this, you know. I think it's time that, you know, I know COVID has isolated a lot of people and I think something like this could be a benefit for this community in a lot of different ways.
Okay.
So
I would make a recommendation that we just embrace the idea of you know, further exploring this, and as opportunities become available, look at them then. But I think you're right, Eileen, this doesn't look like something we need to move on now.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I've seen this in a couple different places, and I think it's a great opportunity.
Yeah.
And I agree that getting the community together after, how long has it been? 2 years. I think that would do wonders for everyone. So, is there any further discussion on that one? No. I don't see anybody on it. Okay, so the last piece is other business. Does anybody have any other business? Eric, do you have any business? Josh?
All set.
Anybody in the public have anything further to say? I don't have anybody here. Are we having an executive session tonight?
I don't believe so because Josh is not here.
Okay. So
In person.
Yeah, we'll postpone that to the next meeting, Josh.
Sounds good.
Okay. So our next meeting date is March 24th, 2022.
Perhaps 2022, yep.
All moving back a year. Let's not do that. Let's keep going forward.
Have to be at the very end, right?
It's,
No, I'm stuck. I'm
It's all
stuck
good.
in that COVID.
It's all good. So
Yeah.
March 24th, 2022 at 5:30 p.m. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion on that one? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.